Hey, MP friends, it is me. It is Professor Walden here, and I am here for a little chat. So I hope that you absolutely enjoyed this discussion that we are about to have with our guest. It is full of nuggets and gems, things that you can take back to your practice and implement yourself, as well as just bits and pieces of information to not only give you some knowledge, but to help make you a strong, caring, and kind clinician. That matters to me. So I hope that you enjoy it. Take a look. All right. Hey, Tasha, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Trina?
I'm doing pretty good. All right, guys. So as I stated before, she goes by Nurse Tasha or Nurse Tosh. But this is Tasha, and she has a wealth of knowledge in as a labor and delivery nurse for how many years now?
20.
Wow.
2 decades.
Yeah, so a wealth of knowledge. And again, as I stated before, she also has her YouTube and her podcast called May I Hold Your Hand. So I definitely will tell you how to reach out to her and how to get in contact with her so you can listen to that and kind of get on her level. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of have that conversation about Black maternal health and just kind of this reproductive health that we are kind of, like I said, just going through right now in society. We are very aware right
Mhm.
now of reproductive health and things affecting women, and specifically things affecting Black women. So I kind of wanted to address that. So we've seen in the news, and we continuously are hearing about mothers. And yesterday I read an article. It was a mom who recently passed away
Mm.
because it didn't say specifically, but of course, something went on during birth and she didn't make it. So now we have another newborn baby who does not have a mommy, and who is being raised by a single father now at this point. So kind of just, give me your feelings and take, and we can kind of continue having this conversation about what you're seeing, what is happening, and then you can skew it to Black maternal health as well. It's everything is fair game.
Okay. You said feelings, and I could have melted because I have a lot. I have a lot of strong emotions about this. Aside from it being my passion, my heart, I love assisting babies get earthside safely, and assisting the families, not just the mama. When I'm in the hospital, I'm no longer at the bedside, but when I was at the bedside, I would speak to my patient and her partner or support people all together, because I feel like truly teaching and supporting a mother is also educating and teaching everybody who's going to be there to support her. And we're only as good as the knowledge, support, information, all of those things that we have in our community as a whole. It's not just a singular job or act to raise a child, to parent. Like, it's major, right? Like, um,
Absolutely.
at the risk of sounding cliche, it is the hardest job. It is the most important job that I've ever had and will ever do in this life. I always knew that I wanted to be a mother, and I also like from a very young age knew that I wanted to be a nurse too. Um, but I have like many times said that if I would have gone my whole life without being a nurse and was a mom, that would have been okay,
Mm.
right? But the opposite wouldn't have been true. Had I gone my whole life without becoming a mother and being a nurse and caring for people, doing what I love, I would have still felt I'm a huge void in my life. So, maternal health, mothering, parenting, all of those spaces are like my jam. So to see mothers, especially Black mothers, because I love my people, I intentionally stayed at a hospital that served what we call then underserved populations. I intentionally stayed there because most of my patients look like me, and I wanted them to see something different. I wanted to share my story if they wanted to hear it. I wanted to let them know that, baby, I could have been you and you could be me.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
there's no difference between the two of us. Um, but yeah, I seeing Black mothers and Black families. I feel like almost weekly, definitely monthly. And these are the ones, the moms who died. We're not talking about the near misses. We're not talking about the ones who are managing PTSD from their traumatic birth or birth experience, or if it went like dramatically wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot be in a room of my own friends and not have most of us tell a story about the birth trauma that we have sustained, and literally like 100% of me and you share,
correct. Yeah.
The same experience. So it's heartbreaking. When I am caring for people, I am in patient advocate mode. I call myself a fierce patient advocate. And for many years, I worked in an environment with residents.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. Nurse Tosh was not the one they wanted to cross.
Right.
No, you're not going to do this. Because even if back then I didn't have the language, like now the language is out there, right?
Yes.
People are saying racism.
Yes.
In healthcare, people are, dressing it up and saying implicit bias even. But even back when I was first a nurse, they weren't even saying that, but it's something that Black people always know and can feel like this is only happening because I'm Black.
Yes.
Right. And so for me, being at the bedside and working with residents, I'm like, y'all only doing this because these patients don't look like you.
Right. No, I
I'm
have
on my watch.
Right. No, I read Medical Apartheid not too long ago, and it took me a while to work up to that book. And there is definitely a chapter, along with some of the other books that I've read in there, about just kind of the medical system and how they treated Black people. And kind of you'll see those same themes. It's just typically called something else. Currently now, you've said even a couple of things that I'm curious about. One of the things that you mentioned, even just when you first start talking, is, one of you like to talk to not only mom, but mom and her community, whatever that is, and whoever that is when they are there. When you are talking specifically to us and mom and her community, talk to me about the reception of what you are telling them. Just kind of what that looks like. Are they receiving what you are telling them? Are they disinterested, or, that kind of?
I would say 90% of the people that I talk to right away are hungry, thirsty for the knowledge, because they've never received the attention that I provide. Right.
That's interesting. Okay.
And so this is not even a collar pop moment, but it is. I come into the room and I make it very clear and known that I am here to serve you. And I'm intentional again about using those words, right? I'm always using open-ended questions. So
let's even stop before you even continue. Let's be very clear, if you're watching this and you are a minority, but shoot, you don't even have to be a minority. This is how your nurse should be serving you.
Right.
This is how, these are the questions and the information you should be receiving in such a vulnerable moment. So. Right.
So even when I come in and I start the podcast like this, hey, I'm Nurse Tosh, and I'm going to take great care of you today. And I mean that. So if I introduce myself to the patient, I always start with that, because even that is like a lost art now. People just walk in the room and start touching you like, we in labor delivery. You're literally going to insert your fingers into my vagina without me even knowing your name? No, you're not.
Right.
Like, no. But anytime anything is going on, especially like with us, you can see a question mark forming on a person's face. You just can. If they're tracking with you or if you have lost them way back there. And so I will say a physician or whoever is talking to the patient or even the family, I'll be like, okay, what questions do you have? Not do you have any questions? What questions do you have?
So even in that point, so let's talk about how important it is for patients to actually say you have, because everyone has a question.
Yes.
You're worried about how this is, what this will feel like. It is so important because you and I both know as providers, we want you to ask us.
Right.
We want you to be informed, especially us, because we're inherently dismissed. So
Right.
we want you to be comfortable enough to ask us the question.
Right. And so this is a place where cultural competency comes into play. Because a lot of people, even if they have questions, they don't feel well versed enough. They don't feel articulate enough. They don't want to seem dumb or stupid, and these words bring a lot of shame to the patient. And when I'm serving patients, there's no space for that. Not while I'm there. We don't have room for that here. Not now. And so I'm always tapped into the energy in the room, and what the feelings may be. And even in tense situations, I have had to say, albeit firm, I've said, hey, I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you. Even with partners, I feel like lots of times partners on the inside wringing their hands because they're anxious. They just want to see their loved one out of pain, or they just want to help and they don't really know how. And sometimes that can come across as aggression or frustration, or someone being like really short with the staff, or even abusive at times, like verbally.
Yeah.
And so I make that clear as well. We're here to help. And so here's what you can do if you would like to help. If that's not the situation you would like to go with, I need to remind you that we're in a hospital and security is here. And we don't have to be subject to your abuse. And I keep this tone the entire time.
I love it. So then what happens when it continues to escalate? And I understand you and I are both kind of cut from that same cloth.
Right.
We don't mind calling who we need to call, but let's kind of interject and bring in when you have the charge nurse who is not supportive because, they sometimes are one track mind, keep the patient in the bed. Let's just get through what they need to get through.
Yeah.
How do we address that from a provider perspective? Because there may be a new nurse watching this and encounter that.
Mm-hmm. I've never been one to have any issues with a charge nurse or a superior in any work environment, but I've always been able to get my point across. Mm-hmm. And so for me, and I'll say this in a room of everybody, I want to give you what you want. Help me help you.
I like that.
And that is for anybody, and I make it clear, like fighting with someone about what they want their birth experience to be, what they want their care to look like, that is not a fruitful battle, not to me. Like there are other things in play. And so some people be like, she wants to be up off the monitor, blah, blah, blah. Well, does her baby look okay? Sure. Does it look like it's well oxygenated? Yes. Is she on any medication that keeps her, like, does she have any contraindications as to why she shouldn't be up? Well, no, but then I can't monitor the baby. Let her get up. Like this is 1 + 1 = 2 for me. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like this is simple because that small thing may allow your whole rest of the shift, or even it could color that patient's experience for their birth forever.
Absolutely. I don't think that people realize how much, because I think we all know there's a lot of hormones, there's a lot of emotion that's happening when a baby is coming into this world, whether or not they're born sleeping or not. It's just a lot of emotion. And those little things are the things that we talk about as women later on.
Yes.
And it's those little things that we remember when we're telling our story. So don't be that provider that kind of makes that inflection point to where it is a negative thing that I am now remembering for basically the rest of my life.
Right. I think too, it's important to understand that most people are coming into the situation feeling a loss of control or a lost sense of control already. Right. And so it's my point in giving some of that power back as much as I can. I give it back, because I want them to know this is not a power struggle, not between me and you.
I love that. So let's kind of go back. So we're on the floor. You are seeing patients because it's not too far removed from you seeing patients. It's very recent. But we know just Black mothers in general are 3 to 4 times more likely to die. I think we are starting to understand that there is a serious problem. However, there's been no quite action yet, but that there is a problem that we are yelling about and becoming very loud. Tell me why you think that is, and maybe some of the things that you have seen when you've been on the floor.
Well, we've already said racism, structural racism is probably number one. You know, it's baked into our society. And I'll give you an example. And this is not even from me being on the floor in the hospital. This is from as recent as the job that I'm doing since August. Okay. I work with a postpartum blood pressure monitoring program. So if any patient has any sort of blood pressure disorder during their pregnancy related or outside, once they're discharged, my company will give them a blood pressure cuff, a machine that is synced with our system, and we'll get their readings, right? And so if their readings are 150 over 100, like 160s over 110s, which for any lay people, normal blood pressure is around 120 over 80. Okay. So if they have high enough blood pressures, we have to escalate. Okay. So I had a call with a patient and I was like trying to get her set up in the system and all of that. And so I'm like, all right, when we get done, I want you to take your blood pressure cuff out of the box, which she hadn't yet. Okay. Take your cuff out the box, put the batteries in, and just press start. That's, you don't have to do anything else. She took her first blood pressure and it was maybe 150s over 110s. Okay. So I said, okay, there's a few things we need to talk about still, but let's do some deep breathing because that's also my jam. I'm in this mindfulness space. I do mind body medicine. Like it's my thing. So I'm like, let's do some deep breathing. I took her through a really, really short meditation and was like, okay, well, let's try it again. It was 170s over 110.
Yeah.
Correct. And so I called the physicians who we're supposed to escalate to. And they respond to me, well, it's not in stroke range. And I say, isn't it? And then I had another patient once who was actually symptomatic, and these are their responses. And so my team lead, who I work with, I said, this is what we mean when we say the racism is baked in, because likewise, this client base is in Washington, D.C. Okay, so mostly Black. I also work with patients in LA.
Okay.
Same week, maybe even the same day, we had a patient whose blood pressures were 130s over 80s, maybe 140s over 90s. Okay, so you kind of like, okay, you're on a radar, right? But we didn't like running. That patient had already been seen by her provider, had been given a blood pressure cuff from the provider, and was on a schedule to see a cardiologist.
Wow. Wow.
And so it's just amazing how these resources are available to people who, I'm not going to say don't need them, but there's none available to the people who need them most. And those people most often look like us.
Correct. So that's clearly a little bit of a barrier. So I am of the camp where, people are like, encourage people to become nurses, encourage people to become NPs. And I am not that person. I am very much like, follow your heart. What is it that you want to do that you have a general inquisitory nature about? Because just ushering and just encouraging everyone to join the nursing industry as a whole, that's how you get bad nurses, right?
That's how you get nurses who have bought their degrees.
Correct. Which is a whole nother conversation, but that is how you do it. You get people who don't care and are just here for the opportunity that nursing provides or as an NP provides. But we do have that opportunity to make very effective change if you really immerse yourself into the industry. And so, like you said, vastly different from one coast to the next. One person may look like us and the other person does not. Those barriers to these Black women that we are encountering, How do we get past that? Is it that we need more of us as providers, whether or not it is NP, physician, da da da? How do we get over that hump? Because again, we're making the noise now.
Right. So like with every problem, it's not like a one-trick pony, right?
For sure.
It's all layered. And yes, we would need more providers who look like us, but also we would need more providers who look like us, who are tapped into the community and our needs. Because me coming from Indiana is where I originally am from, but coming to Atlanta and working at the hospital, the environment was so toxic here. Like and you know this, Trina, and I typically don't speak about these things in open forum because I feel like it's like in-house stuff.
You don't talk about it. You don't talk about it.
No, but there's no demographic of people who can be worse to us than we are to ourselves. Like we got taught real well our own like internalized racism, and we enacted many times worse than the original, right?
You're right.
And so yes, we need more Black providers, but we also need more Black providers who can be compassionate and also be culturally competent to what our specific needs are, and speak to us in a way that gives us respect, allows us to keep our integrity, and then also empowers us to speak up for ourselves, because mostly it's going to take that too. So again, this is like all encompassing. So for a patient recently that I had to escalate, her blood pressures were crazy, her meds were all over the place. And I called her one night, which we don't typically call patients if their blood pressures are high, but I already had rapport with her, right? Okay. So I had been texting her, but her blood pressure was crazy high. And I said, look, I called her. She was like, well, it's about 30 minutes to my next dose of medication. Should I just take it early? I was like, I can't give you that order for one. I said, but no, we're going to do what the protocol states. You're going to recheck your blood pressure. It's going to be high.
Right. Prepare yourself.
Right. I said, and you're going to get your things together and you're going to head to the hospital. Okay. And so then Nurse Tosh called the resident, which I had already called them earlier in the day about her blood pressure being high. I didn't even really need their permission to send her in. Oh, wow. I'm like, she is on her way. Prepare.
Right.
I'm not asking you what I need.
I'm telling you.
You don't need to call her. She'll be there in 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Period. And this is what we need. Yeah. This is what we need, and that patient even came back and said, thank you so much. I hadn't had anybody really care for me in the way that you have. Like, I really appreciate it because it means everything. And I wasn't trying to scare her. And I told her that I'm not trying to scare you, but here's the real deal.
Yeah. Can I even ask, because I hear this, I am an ER nurse by trade. I never had a desire to go to labor and delivery, but those spaces, right? Like, not me. Keep your legs closed, guys. No, keep the baby in. I will get you there, though. But those spaces, ER, ICU, the specialty spaces, labor and delivery. So yes, even if we say that is part of the approach, that we need more that look like, in general, just diverse and the population in which you serve. Can we talk about how we can't get there? No one wants to talk about this.
I know.
No one wants to talk about this, about how difficult it is. And I know folks are going to say, we're going to get the best person in. And it is like, yes, we are. I support that absolutely 100%. But you oftentimes have a lot of competent people who don't look like the top echelon of what is at that current space, that gatekeep.
Yeah.
That gatekeep, period.
Yeah, you can end it right there. Yeah. Period. I don't know, Trina.
Yeah. Like, I think,
it's really hard because, and when you messaged me and said we would talk about this, I was like, oh man, I don't know. I mean, immediately, yes, but definitely like some stuff is going to come up because what is the solution? Like doula care is coming to the forefront a lot. right? But also you have this dynamic where the doulas can kind of be combative, and the staff and the providers are combative to them. And for me, I'm on the outside like, ma'am, where is your doula?
Right.
Because she can do all the hands-on stuff that I really may not be able to do. Like if I have two laboring patients and they are really crack-a-lacking,
Yeah.
like I want to be present for both of them, but I physically cannot. If one of them has a doula, my night is made exponentially better.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
those
Interesting.
parents, yeah, and those parents have a far better experience because they don't feel like the nurse is just running in and out, pressing buttons and unavailable, right? The doula is then there to fill the gap, right?
So this is the alternative to, if we
It's
can't get in the space,
it's not an alternative. It's a this
in
ain't.
addition. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is a complement to the team when you think about patient-centered care,
Okay.
right? And so what I feel like would be helpful would be for the doulas who are going for certification to also get some basic medical knowledge. So that way they won't really be as combative towards the staff about what may be medically necessary or not, but have a base knowledge so that you can know the difference. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying? Just so
Correct.
you're not being like, oh, she didn't want that. So no. Well, her baby is, lack of oxygen, and so she needs something on her face or whatever.
Right, right, right.
Like, because I really don't have the time in an emergency to educate you about physiology, and you're supposed to be here advocating for her.
Right,
Okay.
right.
But also, even with that, I think about my own self and
Mhm.
my own situation. Like, people don't really talk about it a lot, but the pandemic has compounded this issue. It's made it far worse. I was pregnant I was pregnant in 2020. So this was in June at the
Yeah,
start of this racial trauma that kicks up. I call it the summer of Sam. It's like always in the
that's a
summer.
good way to put
Yeah,
it.
there's this uptick in violence on Black bodies. And so I'm pregnant. And so my first birth was really, really traumatic. I didn't want to have a C-section, another C-section, but I picked a provider who I didn't realize did not support VBAC. I was well into my pregnancy.
Oh no.
I tried to change, couldn't change providers because I was too far along. And so at that point, I was like, let me just release it. But I had so much anxiety, right? And in the middle of that, I took care of a patient who was a veteran mom. This was her seventh pregnancy,
Wow.
her second set of twins.
Wow.
She was about the same age as me. She was 28 weeks pregnant and was hyperemesis. So she, puke,
Mm.
puke, 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 couldn't keep anything down. They were talking about doing a PPN for her, like an alternative nutrition. Also, she was still nursing her youngest child.
Oh,
Right? So
she
the
was going
demand,
through it.
correct. So the demand on her body was much more than she really could expand. Okay. She had a Black male doctor and she delivered here in Atlanta. She also died. I was very, very close with her. I was set to provide postpartum doula care for her. And this was during my pregnancy. Oh, she was a lactation consultant and she also did doula work.
All the things you do.
And so this is me in that situation. I'm an L&D nurse. I had been an L&D nurse for 18 years at that point. I'm on my second baby. I have all the knowledge. I have a Black provider. I'm in a mostly Black space. What saves me?
What saves you?
What saved her? Nothing. Nothing saved her. You know what I'm saying? And she still wasn't listened to. I spoke to her maybe like a week before she went in to deliver, a week or two
Mm-hmm.
before she went in to give birth.
Mm-hmm.
And she had told her provider, her ankles were like this big, like she had all this swelling, and they pretty much brushed her off. And I was like, please advocate for yourself. Please advocate for yourself.
I think that is where we're at. I think as Black women, I'm going to include all people of color here. What do we do at that point? Because you do have someone like you who is here and who is saying, this isn't correct.
Mm-hmm.
You need to advocate for yourself. This is not how it goes. We're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
what,
just think here is the place where you can't be taught. So like you said, here is the place where someone who is doing it to get a paycheck
yes,
fails the patient, right?
yes.
Because I can tell you with her specific story, when she was admitted, she delivered at the hospital where I worked. When
Mm.
she was admitted, nurses were like, her vitals were stable, but it was just something off about her. Okay.
It
When
was
she,
that gut feeling that,
correct, that we've been taught to ignore our intuition. Okay. And so when she went to surgery, because she ended up having to have a C-section, and this case made national news. But
mm,
she went to surgery. The anesthesiologist said that she had a funky wave on her EKG. Hmm, nothing
I'm
happened.
like, did you do anything?
Nothing
I'm
happened.
waiting on you to say that something was tested, something was checked, something was.
No,
You
and so
can't
I
tell
think
me you saw a funky wave and you didn't check it to someone who just immediately gave birth to twins.
who was previously hospitalized at well into her second trimester for hyperemesis, who was also nursing a toddler. You know what I'm saying? Malnutrition, anyone? Um, so yeah, I think in those moments is where the people who were born to do this work
Mhm.
need to be like, no, no, you know what I'm saying? Like the code teaching, the things that they teach us in a code. Like if you're trying to resuscitate someone and nothing's working, you have to stop.
Yeah.
Let's stop. Let's
Yeah.
do the checklist. Let's go back to school with this. Because
Let's go
something
back to the basics. That's how I've been talking about
yeah,
it.
yeah, let's go back. It's almost like, Grey's Anatomy, where they would be like, nope, something's off with this patient. Let's do all the things. And they would put their heads together and they would really like buckle down and focus all of their
Yeah.
ingenuity,
Yeah.
put
I,
their energy into what may be the issue with this patient.
Yeah, I think that is also you're kind of hinting around at also what the issue is and why we're having such trouble with care, specifically surrounding our pregnant mommies, because it does take time. You do have to stop. And we are in such a capitalistic world where we must move. You and I both know we have seen healthcare change. I remember I was taught by Catholic nurses. So they taught me to rub on a patient. They
Mhm.
taught me to touch a patient.
Mhm.
But that is not what you see now. And that is not how you are precepted now. It is very much move as quickly as you can, get in, get out, and try to move the patient
It's
out.
this. I would I routinely would take my orientees almost by the arm and I would be like, come away from the computer.
Like your patient is here,
Come away from the computer.
here,
Like
here.
you gotta talk to the patient, like the machines are good. They give us a lot of information. They'll never give you enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You working with another human being. So yeah, I don't know. I think too in this patient's case, there was a lot of leeway.
Mm,
And so this is a balance too, where you have to again like go with your gut and what you're taught. So the patient wants control and they want power, right? But they also understand and know that you have training and knowledge that they don't have. And so while they want to make the choice and be in charge of making the choice, no one wants to be told what they're going to do. Really, a lot of times they do want you to tell you what you would choose for yourself,
that's
right?
a good point.
And so with this patient, she should have gotten TPN. She didn't want it, but she said, if I must, I will. If I must, I will. And the provider was kind of like, well, we're offering it. So you probably should.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
And it should have been more like, well, we're going to get that going right now
Right, right, right. No.
because you must, because you're supporting two babies, yourself, and you're breastfeeding a third baby who you're thankfully away from right now because
Oh my gosh.
nobody couldn't handle it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you said, no one wants to kind of give up control, but
Mhm.
I think that there's such a fine line that we as providers have to kind of bear or walk. It's allow them to be comfortable if it's not going to hurt them or provide a barrier for you taking care of them. So like you said earlier, if what they want to do is to get up, why aren't we allowing it if everything looks okay? And you may come back to them and say, I need you to get back into bed for about 10 minutes. Let me monitor that baby and see what's going on. Let me monitor you and make sure you are okay. And if everything stays, as my mother loves to say, if everything is copacetic, then allow them to go ahead and get back up and do it.
Right. It's crazy though how agreeable people are if you just talk to them though, or if even you can make it so that they understand what your concern is in the first place. Because if you're telling me everything is fine, everything is fine, everything is fine, why shouldn't I be able to get up and have a shower right now? Why shouldn't I be able to eat? Give me a rationale, like help me understand. You know, this like the corporate response. Can you help me understand?
Right.
But help me understand so that we're all on the same page and then we can move forward, you know. And there's even been times where the patient has asked me, why can't I? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. You can go ask the provider. It's like we have to release our ego.
We have to let go.
We have to release the ego.
Yeah.
And we get to set the tone.
Absolutely.
As the providers, because many times they see us, they have this hierarchy in their mind. Now, for me, I let them know there's no hierarchy here. And if there is, you're at the top of the food chain. Because if you didn't choose to come here, then I wouldn't have a job. There would be no place to come to. And this is you and every other patient in every other bed in this hospital. But there's no hierarchy here. You're in charge. I'm here to do what it is you would like for me to do. And I'm like, you're already at the hospital. You know, in this hospital where I used to work, they would accept patients who originally planned to give birth at the birthing center. But for whatever reason, they couldn't.
Yes.
And so they had to come to the hospital. And so for me, I would be like, listen, tell me what I need to do to be invisible. I'll do like the least amount of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am still working to provide you with a birth close enough to what you had pictured in your mind.
So here's the thing. What I need you to, let's talk about those who potentially, some alternatives, some assistance. So we talked about having a doula. So kind of tell me what a doula does, what, you know, its purpose, because you are a doula. So tell me it is what you do, how it helps, and how someone can access a doula, because I think one of the important things is we are now aware of them. Don't know how to potentially pay for them. If that is something that I truly, truly want in my spirit, because also if I am at a lower income, how do I get the help?
Yeah, so let me start with that first because it might be a little bit easier to answer. Doula care is now on the national platform or stage, right? And so there's lots of states making moves to include doula care as part of Medicaid or what have you, or reimbursement through your insurance company, okay? Also with the pandemic, which has been gut-wrenching in some ways. Right. It got us in a chokehold. It's been that in some ways, but in other ways has brought forth this ingenuity. There's lots of doulas providing virtual care. Okay.
I love that. Okay.
And so that's kind of what I provide because I'm contracted with a local nonprofit, but I'm not going in the hospital because I have my own small children and family to care for one, and I let them know up front, like that does not align with my home life at all.
Yeah.
But what I do is provide care for the clients before they give birth. So I check in with them maybe weekly, depending on where they are gestation wise. I check in with them frequently and let them know I'm here and available to you. So if you have questions about anything that happened at the doctor, even call me, text me, you know, whatever. And I take care of them after they have.
I love that. I love that. So someone can use a doula in that aspect.
Yes. Okay. So let me talk about what a doula is. A doula is someone who provides care and support to a pregnant person during their pregnancy, during labor is what we most likely will see the term used as labor doulas, and then postpartum. And they work to support the family unit, the patient, the baby, breastfeeding, like you name it. Okay. And so, like I said, in the realm that I provide care, it's more hands off just because of with the pandemic and things like that. Like the home that I service, they were closed. I
Gotcha.
couldn't go there if I wanted to. And then if I do visit, I'm masked.
Right.
Right. And so I do childbirth education, which your doulas do that. And there's other doulas that specialize in different things. So like some doulas are yoga instructors and they work on movement and maybe even some pelvic therapy. And, some doulas have done training for nutrition. And so they can help you with nutrition aspects. I am leaning into and love like parenting coaching, right? And so gentle parenting or conscious parenting. Some have lactation certifications and can support with breastfeeding extensively. Like I have experience with breastfeeding, but I'm not a lactation consultant, right? And so I'm very open and letting them know, but also doulas have connections in the community. Okay. And so for me, if I have some mamas who have just given birth and they're struggling with breastfeeding, I have Lactation Consultant Connect locally. And what I do is call her up. Hey, girl, I got a patient for you. Can you see her? And I bill for her services under my company.
Gotcha.
Right. And so this is how doulas work. Postpartum support for this patient who passed away for me was going to look like me going to her house and taking the baby off of her hands for 4 hours, or her baby, sorry, or me going to her house, tidying up, cleaning up, doing some laundry for her, meal prep. I got HelloFresh as part of my care, so I could meal prep, caring for her other kids so that she could do whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's just another person there who can free you up to do whatever it is you need to do. So a doula will care for the mom or the birthing person and the family and fill in the gap wherever it's necessary. I had a blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope. I'm a licensed registered nurse, right? So I can do these things. I can make these assessments and that's another thing that we need to fix. Follow up in 6 weeks is too long. Yeah. And then that's it. Like that's your postpartum appointment. And typically these people are not seen again by a physician. Most of them are not seen by a physician when they're coming into their pregnancy. They do not have primary care providers because they're generally healthy. Right. And so we find ourselves fielding all of these other issues. They come to us with high blood pressure. Are you chronic hypertensive? Did you have this before you're pregnant? I don't know, because they ain't been to the doctor. These issues come to the surface once they are being cared for by a doctor during their pregnancy. But after that, an OB will drop you off.
Yes, they will. They will.
So
I love that
too.
So I love all of this. And I think there's some aspects that I didn't even know. Because, again, when we see it on TV, it is very much the labor doula, or anyone talks about it, it is the labor doula. I learned about the postpartum stuff through you. I knew that women did it and nurses did it. But actually coupling it with being a doula, I learned that from you. So there's different aspects that I haven't realized. And I'm glad that you said that. Again, doulas are now covered a lot of the times. I'm very curious if you're aware or not. Does someone who has Medicaid, is that covered? Is it covered?
It can be covered or reimbursed. And I know that that's a challenge for some people. So they can ask for reimbursement or coverage. Still very new and early in the stages. Also, Medicaid is requiring like a certification through whatever body trains doulas, right? So that's a barrier, really. But also look on your social media if you need to look for a doula. We didn't cover that. If you need to find a doula, hashtag doula ATL.
Yes.
Really all you need to know. And even if you get to one, they may be like me, I don't provide in-person support, but I know some other doulas who may be available, and let's see if they can help you out. Also, there's doulas who barter. There's doulas who will work with you. Like I know a doula, she'd be like, if say the client is a hairdresser.
Yes.
Or something like that. you don't have the capital to be able to pay for my service. Let's exchange services. You give me X
I
amount of
love that.
hairstyles or whatever, I got you. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to start to be creative about getting the support that we need, but also a lot of people aren't having these conversations in the open. So you don't even know
So you
that people
don't
are
know.
donating. There's services that say, if I meet a client or if I have a client, I can charge them what my full rate is,
Mhm.
but really have part of that cover the rate for someone else who can't
It's like
pay.
a sponsorship or a scholarship.
You can do crowdfunding. You've donated to Sacred Birthright before. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying?
Yes.
For childbirth education classes and things like that. So a lot of times it's just the knowledge and being able to get it, like getting a pump. You know, a lot of people don't know you can
You
call.
get one for free.
It may not be the top of the line, the best thing, but guess what it's gonna do? Move some milk.
Right? I was about to say, you're going to get the milk, and that's all we're worried about.
That's all you need. Move the milk. Mhm. Don't have to be special. Just move the
Don't
milk.
have to be special. I love it. No, this is great because I think that that is also one of the things. I think, especially in our community, we look at it as this is the thing that women get when they have good jobs and they have
Yeah,
supportive spouses and they have money to do these things. And it's like, no, I
this should be standard.
it should be a standard. And I know you and I like are really advocates. And I have a few other friends who are doing this. They're big advocates for getting into that population that might not normally have access
Mm-hmm.
and letting them know that, hey, no, we serve you too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely my first doula client was pro bono.
See,
You know, and even trying to get started, you know, you have doulas who have to complete 5 births or something like that. They have to attend that before they can get their certification.
gotcha,
Seek out the
gotcha,
schools, seek
gotcha.
out the doula certification bodies. Hey, do you know any doulas who need to get their births in? I'm looking for a doula.
Hmm.
And so
Gotta
that
be
was me.
creative.
Yes, there was a newer physician at the hospital. I said, hey, I'm starting this thing. If you have clients who need, you know, assistance, give them my information. I will do the first 3 for free.
Hmm.
And I had my first client for free. I took care of her. And we're Facebook friends now. Our baby's like 3. Cutest thing ever. But you know, even to this day, she'll be like, man, like I just can't even imagine what my birth or what this process would have been like without you.
Right, right, right. And it's all about, again, you're slowly just building that community, and the
Mhm.
doula is included in your community and can do a
Yeah.
lot of that advocating for you when we need
Yes.
you focusing on you and your
Yeah.
baby.
And that's something that I was explaining to my honey last night that people don't realize, right? So, oftentimes a lot of these issues come into play when the patient is laboring and say they're in fight or flight.
Yes.
Okay. And so, what's important to know about that is when you are in fight or flight, or you're so anxious that you can't catch your breath, your
Mhm.
body is going to do what it needs to do to survive. So that means it's shunting blood away from anything that is not going to help you survive, right? So your heart, your brain, your large muscles. Nowhere in there did you hear me say uterus. Okay. And so I explained this to my patients when I would coach them at the bedside. In addition to me teaching them how to breathe, and
Mhm.
here is I'm giving physiology as to why we're breathing this way. And
Mhm.
so this aids in the safe space, and having familiar faces in the room aids in the safe space. Having someone advocate for you
Yeah.
aids in the safe space. If they have affirmations on the wall, aids in the safe space. Lights low, aids in the safe space. And so if they can labor in the mindset that they're not in fight or flight, that they are safe, then it increases the oxygen flow to the baby. It increases a positive birth experience and decreases the risk for,
All
feeling
the other things.
correct. Correct. And so that's why a doula, or having a doula there, is important. This is someone who you have a rapport with, you've built a relationship with them, even if you haven't built a relationship with a provider, right? Because providers work in groups too. So even if you're great
True.
with your doctor, there may be somebody else on the day that you actually
Correct.
work, like it was with me,
Correct. Yes.
and so that's just different. That's a different experience. And so having someone there who knows you, who knows what you said you wanted, what you didn't want, y'all have a take charge routine, and you got a tap out word. You have discussed all of these things before the big show.
Yeah.
That makes a difference in how people perceive their birth to have gone and what their birth experience is like, but also it changes the birth experience and outcome.
It does. I love that. So at what point should someone, if they're interested in a doula, seek one? And then is there a point at which it's too late?
No, I don't think there's a point at which it's too late, because many times people just want someone there to be
Very
supported.
true. Very
Okay.
true.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is you can get a doula as early as maybe like 8 to 12 weeks, I would say.
Okay.
Okay. And even if that birth doesn't end up in a live baby, you still have someone who's there supporting you. And there's also bereavement doulas.
Look at there. Didn't even know.
Because every birth doesn't end
in a happy ending like we see, and we know that.
Right. And so a birth doula, I know one, is specialized in making that grief process, the facilitation of it happening a little bit smoother, but also creating a ritual or memory around the life that was lost. You know what I'm saying? Maybe providing some comfort or closure in those moments.
That might be lovely to get, especially if you already know that is the outcome is not going to be in your favor.
Right.
Sometimes you know. Right. And sometimes you do know. So it might be something to look at so that you can truly be in that moment of grieving and let everybody else or someone else worry about everybody else.
Right. And then too, I think within grief and heavy emotion situations, you don't really need someone to help you. You need a witness. You need someone who can be there with you, who can just be with you. You don't need to be held. You don't need them dabbing your face with you. People need to be left alone in certain moments to take care of themselves and do what they need, but also have people around to support them in the event that they need more support. But most of the time, people just want to be with someone.
What pops into my mind is when you said you walk in the room with someone from the birthing center, you say, well, tell me how to be invisible. It's
correct.
The same concept. It is, you are going through something. I'm going to allow you to go through it, and I'm going to go sit in this corner right here. And the moment you need something, I'm in your face. But until then, I'm gonna go sit in this corner, right? And I'll just kind of be watching and assisting from afar.
Yeah, because also being able to name the thing, and give voice to, I know this is not what you pictured. I honor that for you, and whatever you need to feel around that, you can feel that with me here, and it's okay.
Yeah, that's sweet. So I love this. So this was great. This was wonderful. I am hoping we get lots of questions. So tell everybody how they can get in contact with you, and we'll make sure that we put it up on the screen and all that good stuff.
Sure. So the name of my podcast is May I Hold Your Hand by Nurse Tosh. It is abbreviated MIHYH. You can find me on YouTube at the same address, MIHYH by Nurse Tosh. And that's also my email address, MIHYH by Nurse Tosh at Gmail. On the socials, I am nurse_Tosh.
I love it. I love it. Well, hopefully we have answered a lot of questions especially on that doula piece, which is something that I think our community really needs to start taking more advantage of, so that we just, again, start creating and cultivating that community, because if no one else advocates for us.
Right. And then, if the family fails, if the baby fails, if the mom fails, we all fail.
We all fail. Yeah. And period. Yeah. End story, full stop.
Right.
So that's always the goal, is to have a healthy, whole, happy mommy and unit go home. But we all know it doesn't end that way. So whatever that transition is, we want to make it as comfortable as possible through that. So I'm excited. We'll make sure that we have everyone be able to get in touch with you. And if you guys have further questions about being a doula or just listening to Nurse Tosh, listening to her soothing voice, I know you guys heard it. So if you want to continue listening to her soothing voice, please check out her podcast and check her out on socials. And
Thank you.
hopefully we'll talk to her soon. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for coming. All right. Bye, guys. So excited that you were able to listen in on this interview that we had and this good discussion. I mean, did you learn anything? I absolutely did. It's going to be good. Take what you've learned, utilize those nuggets and bits and pieces of information and really internalize it and use it to make yourself a better clinician. Use it to make sure that you are treating your patients better. That's why we do this. All right, guys. NP friends, I'll see you around.